Hi all, I wanted to bring you a quick guide on understanding comps power spikes. So let's get straight into it. So why am I making this video? Why is it important for you to understand your comp's power spikes? Well, there's a few reasons. Reason one, you know what the most important parts of the comp are. If you know this, you know when to transition into your comp, what makes your comp strong, and it gives you more information to make your decision. So if you were in game and you were deciding between two comps, let's say you were deciding between Cybernetics and Astro Snipers, if you know what the most important parts are and you hit that part first in your next roll in the shop, then you'd know to commit to that comp straight away. Which leads to the second reason, you know when to commit to your comp, right? Third reason, and maybe the most impactful reason, once you've committed to your comp, you know when to optimally roll for your comp in order to stabilize, right? There are a lot of comps, and we'll see in a moment, that peak at either level 7 or level 8. If you have a comp that peaks at level 8 and you roll at level 7, it's kind of a disaster, because you might be rolling for your carry, but your comp is not quite strong enough yet to support that carry. Similarly, if your comp spikes at level 7 and you want to roll at level 8, then you will have missed your chance to optimally roll and reach your spike faster, which would have saved you HP. So I'm going to be looking at these comps. This is taken out of the slide from my last guide, the Play What You Hit guide. So if you want more information on these guides, on these comps, then you go back to that video and check that out. For this video, we're just going to use this recap and go through each of the comps in order to investigate where their power spikes are. Let's start with Cybernetics. Here's the Cybernetic comp that I recommend. It's the most popular and one of the most consistent ones there. You could also have Wukong instead of Riven, but that's neither here nor there. In the Cybernetic comp, you have a very early spike in 3 Cybers, right? You have Vayne, Fiora, Leona. Most often, this is going to be Lucian, Fiora, Leona, just because Vayne is a 3-cost unit and it's hard to obtain. But just knowing that you have a 3 Cyber spike is good. You have another small spike in adding Kate when you have Vayne, because that will give you your snipers. You'll have another small spike in adding any Chrono unit. That Chrono unit is going to end up being Riven or Wukong, but in the early game, if you have TF, that will serve well. Or Shen. Actually, Shen's probably better because it's a frontline. Then we have the biggest spike at level 8, when you have your 6 Cybers, and your Kate, and your Riven or Wukong, right? And the most important part of this is that you'll already have your Chrono, but you have your 6 Cybers spike at level 8. At level 8, this is the time where you'd want to roll to stabilize this comp, right? And by stabilize, I mean if you're level 8 and you don't have Vayne 2, Aurelia 2, Riven or Wukong 2, Vi 2, or Echo, then you need to start rolling. It's at this point in the game where you're typically going to be quite low on HP, and you can't afford to sacrifice more in order to get to level 9. If you roll well at level 8, or if you manage to hit your comp naturally, which is very rare, but let's say you hit your comp naturally and you have lots of gold and you're really strong, then you can level to level 9 and put in your Thresh for your Mana Reaver. When you have this, don't forget to have units on your bench for Thresh to pull, preferably something like an Urgot 2. Okay, moving on to Astro Snipers, a very different comp compared to Cybernetics, because when you looked at Cybernetics, there was a very easy progression to follow, right? You started with 3 Cybers, then you add a Sniper, then you add Chrono, then you want to work towards 6 Snipers, 6 Cybers. With Astro Snipers, there's no easy progression. So, for this kind of team, I'm just going to break down each of its components, which you may hit at completely different times in the game, but just knowing what the important spikes are is also quite important. So, probably the most important spike if you have all 4 snipers, that's a pretty strong indication that you should commit to Astro Snipers, is when you have Jhin, Teemo, Kate, and Ashe. You're most likely going to start with Kate and Ashe for a 2 sniper spike in the early game, or Kate and Vayne that you want to swap out for Ashe later. And then if you manage to hit Jhin or Teemo, right, because either is your carry, that will commit you pretty much to Astro Snipers. And then if you hit the other, so let's say you have Jhin and then you hit Teemo, whilst already having Kate and Ashe, that'll be your 4 sniper spike there. When you have Teemo, having Naught and Gnar will give you your Astro spike. That's a pretty big spike when Teemo is your carry, because having Teemo with blue buff especially, ulting every 2 autos is incredibly beneficial. And most importantly, having a Wukong for that final spike. Chrono is the most important spike because it gives all of your snipers more attack speed. The Vanguard spike is kind of nice, but that's not the reason why you're going to want to cement your comp here. This comp is different to Cybernetics because it actually spikes the hardest at level 7, not level 8. So that means when you're level 7 and you're committed to this comp, you can actually start rolling for your units. There's another significant spike, but not nearly as important as the level 7 spike, at level 8, when you try and hit Lulu for a Celestial spike. And then finally, at level 9, if you roll really well, then you can go towards level 9 and find Soraka or Karma for your Mystic spike. Karma would give you your Darkstar Mystic spike. Let's move on to Brawler Blasters. This one has a fairly nice progression, kind of more in line with the Cybernetics team. You start off with the early game with 4 Brawlers, right? That's a nice little spike. That'll give you Malphite, Blitz, Vi, and Gnar. That Gnar is usually going to be Illaoi early game, and then you swap out Illaoi for Gnar. Ezreal and Jinx, level 6, is a very good spike because Ezreal plus Blitz will give you a Chrono, and that Chrono becomes more significant when you hit Jinx, right? A Jinx with Chrono is more important than 4 Brawlers with Chrono. Your level 7 spike is if you hit a Rebel unit. It's going to end up being ASOL in most cases, but any Rebel unit will give you your Jinx, your Rebel power, and it's at this point, at level 7, where you have 4 Brawlers, 2 Blasters, and 3 Rebels, because Jinx, Malphite, and the 3rd Rebel. This is the point where your comp spikes the hardest. Again, it's a level 7 comp, so you can actually start rolling at level 7. This is one of those comps where there's loads of endgames. I'm just going to go through a few of them. At level 8, you can put in Janna. You can also put in GP if you have Ziggs as your Rebel unit instead of ASOL or Zed or any other Rebel unit. This is because Ziggs will give you your Demolitionist bonus, right? And that will make GP ult with the AoE stun. You could also push to level 9 and put Lulu and Soraka in for a Mystic Spike, which is the default here. You could also have Thresh and Wukong for 4 Chrono Spike. Okay, so again, level 7 is your biggest spike. That's for your core comp spike. These are your level 8 spikes that you could potentially hit, and if you wanted to, you could also push for level 9 to get these. Vanguard Mystics. Similar to Brawler Blasters, it has a fairly nice progression, and actually the progression is quite similar. 4 Vanguards instead of 4 Brawlers. At level 6, you hit Karma and Cass for your Mystic and Darkstar spike. But this comp does not really spike at level 7, it spikes at level 8 because of the 4 Mystic spike with Soraka and Lulu. It's at this point where you start to want to roll to hit your 2-star Cass, 2-star Jace, 2-star Soraka, 2-star Lulu, you know. If you're lucky enough in your rolls, you can then go towards level 9 to put in a Thresh or an Urgot. Sorcerers. Probably one of the hardest early game spikes that rivals the Cybernetic spike. In that you have Poppy, Ari, and Zoe for your Star Guardian spike and Sorcerer spike, and then a Vanguard. Usually it's going to be Leona, because you'll have Leona 2 way more often than you have Mora 2 or Naught 2. This is like one of the hardest early game spikes, as I said. Level 6, you have a 4 Sorcerer Spike. I've listed TF and Syndra. You could also have an Annie, right? Annie and Syndra is the same spike. The most important part of this spike at level 6 is that you have 4 Sorcerers. And then at level 8 is when you have your 6th Sorcerer Spike, the most important spike because you'll hit your Victor. And you're going to want to roll at this point to hit Victor 2 and all of your other units to be level 2 as well. If you were lucky enough in your rolls, you can push to level 9 to put in Janna, and also find Xerath 2 to replace Annie 2. You kind of need the Xerath 2 to just justify replacing Annie 2, because Annie 2 is really good frontline, and in order to sacrifice that frontline for more backline power, you're going to really want that Xerath 2. This is only one variant of the Sorcerers. There is also the Mech Sorcerers, which has pretty similar spikes, honestly. Just that instead of this kind of frontline, well, you will have this early game, but if you manage to find Annie, Rumble, and Fizz earlier on, you'll be able to have a 4 Sorcerers plus 3 Mech spike. And then you end up with a 6 Sorcerer 3 Mech spike anyway. So similar kind of spike, just the order of it might be slightly different in your game. That was all of the comps, a very quick guide compared to the last couple that I've put out, and I hope this helps. Thank you all for watching, good luck in your TFT games. Bye!